Welcome back. Up next on the show, and this is something that impacts lakhs of citizens across the country. A key report of the government on the process of India's energy transition calls for the elimination of diesel-driven four-wheelers as soon as possible and says that there must be a ban on all diesel-powered four-wheelers in all million-plus cities by 2027. Is this realizable? Does India have the political will to do this? What difference will it make? That's our second debate. We have a fantastic panel. But first, this is the key document, the page in that report that we're going to be talking about. What exactly does it say in terms of energy for surface transport? It says ban diesel four-wheelers in cities by 2027. It's a report submitted to the Petroleum Ministry by an advisor to the Prime Minister. Energy transition panel's recommendations are, as I mentioned, eliminate diesel-powered four-wheelers as soon as possible, ban diesel four-wheelers in cities with a million-plus population by 2027, promote electric vehicles as an optimal solution to shift away from diesel. There should be no diesel-powered city buses plying after 5 years, ban diesel buses in cities, only electric delivery vehicles should be registered from 2024, 75% of delivery vehicles should be all-electric in cities by 2033. Joining us now, Amit Bhatt, the Managing Director of the Indian Council on Clean Transportation. We're joined by Narendra Taneja, a leading energy expert, and R.S. Sharma, the former Chairperson and Managing Director of ONGC. Mr. Bhatt, let me come to you first. 2027, realistically, can we ban diesel vehicles off our roads?
Thanks a lot, Vishnu. I think it's a very important discussion that has come out from this report. I think the reason I would try to highlight is that we did some research to understand what is the health impact of transport vehicle exhaust. And our research found that there are almost 75,000 lives which are lost every year in India, which these are premature deaths that are directly attributable to transport vehicle exhaust. So the point is we have to reduce combustion in our cities, and we have to create a framework where transportation, road transportation in cities happens, which does not include combustion. And that means we have to look at long-term vision of creating zero-emission transport. And battery electric is one, hydrogen fuel cell is other. But the other point is that if you look at amongst various fuel types, emissions are very high in vehicles that are run on diesel compared to gasoline or CNG. And therefore, as cities struggle from pollution, the question is, what can we do to eliminate this? So absolutely, I think it's a good step. How do we realize is a big question mark, but we have to look at a situation where at least in transportation in cities are not run by diesel-based internal combustion engines.
Arun Malhotra, the flip side of looking at this argument would be that we now have low-sulfur diesel available increasingly across our country. Does low-sulfur diesel, Bharat's Stage 6 compliant diesel, actually make a difference to the point where a ban like this may not be required?
Well, the BS6 norms, the way they have come out, the BS6 phase 2 norms, which became applicable from April this year, the sulfur content has been reduced dramatically. But let me take the broader perspective that even we assume that we have to remove diesel from the country. If you look at the 3-4 segments, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, absolutely there's virtually the diesel is either there or not there at all. In take of passenger vehicles, the diesel contribution has fallen from 50% 5 years back to 18%. And probably it will fall sharper more when the new norms of the BS6 comes in. So I don't see any problem in this. But if I take into the area of buses and heavy commercial vehicles, there the challenge is 95% is in diesel, and there is no clear alternative road plan in the next 4 years to complete it. The other point, we're talking of 50 cities being covered by it. And if you just take a state of Madhya Pradesh, and if you cover above 10 lakhs population, the 4 cities, Indore, Bhopal, Jabalpur, Gwalior, in a way you cut the lifeline of the state. So it basically means a ban on diesel vehicles across the country in 2027. Now, this, although the attempt or although the objective is laudable, it is not practical. We have also not really incentivized other alternative fuels which could have given a low carbon emission. The whole incentives in the FAME policy is on electric vehicles. There is no subsidy on hybrid. There is no subsidy on other also things, LPG and other areas, and also flex fuels. So effectively, I don't think we are prepared for it. So one segment clearly where there is no preparation, and I don't see the transition happening smoothly, is next 4 years. Second of all, last but not the least, the scheme which we had for scrappage, if we wanted to remove vehicles which are most pollutant, it's been there for 2 years, but the implementation has been very slow, to say the least. So these are the challenges, the way I see it.
Narendra Taneja, I think, Arun mentions a very key point when he says that, look, it's all very well to focus on our cities, but if you look at buses and if you look at commercial vehicles, 95% or perhaps even more of that is diesel run. It's not physically possible to get those vehicles off our roads in a finite period of time. Our economy will come grinding to a halt. There is also the entire issue of the replacement of commercial vehicles with either petrol-powered vehicles, which is inefficient for the loads they carry, or electric trucks, which are now available but prohibitively expensive and with no infrastructure on the roads. So how do we actually deal with that?
Well, first of all, Vishnu, this is not a policy initiative on part of the government yet.
Yeah.
It's just a study.
It's a proposal, it's a
by
suggestion.
committee.
Yeah.
It's just a suggestion. So no policy initiative as such. I'm sure the government is going to study, is going to go through the interministerial, lot of questioning and investigations and all that before any policy initiative is available. And let's not forget that pollution and transport are a state subject. We are a federal structure. That means the various states also, they need to be a deep dive in terms of consultations and, the roadmaps and so on and so forth, which in a structure like ours is going to take its own time. So that's very important to underline. But when it comes to, petrol and diesel in particular, yes, levels of nitrogen, oxide is very high. In other words, it pollutes, no doubt about it. I mean, we have known it for now since the invention of the combustion engine. It's absolutely nothing new. But the point is that when we talk of electric vehicles, first of all, batteries, infrastructure across the country, we have got 90,000 petrol and diesel stations across the country, 90,000. And the cities we're talking of minimum 6 cities across the country. And all the new expressways we are building across the countries, if you really have to basically, you're building this only for electric vehicles, electric trucks and electric buses and all that, where is the electricity is going to come from? We produce 67% of electricity in India using coal, which is a fossil fuel, the dirtiest fossil fuel, dirtier than oil, dirtier than gas, 67% globally. Roughly 70% electricity is actually coming from coal. Number two, the report also talks about natural gas. Our dependence on imports for natural gas is roughly about 58%. 8% of gas we consume is imported. 86% oil is imported. 20% of coal is important. For renewable energy, so-called, solar energy, 83 to 86% equipments are imported, that too from China. So what happens to your energy security? So you look, intent is very good. Excellent intent, no doubt about it. Who would not like to our cities absolutely clean, like you see in some places like in the Arctic Circle? Who would not like to do that? At least I would like to do that. But at the same time, can we afford to compromise with the economic growth? Can we afford to compromise, with the job creation? Can we afford to compromise India not being a $27 trillion economy by 2050. Look, Vishnu, geopolitics so well. If we don't grow at 7 to 8%, China is going to make our life hell. We got to understand it. So energy is linked to everything. Energy is 80% politics. Let's not forget that. So all these things people are talking about, clean air and all that. I mean, I lived in the West and, I'm there every month almost. We know that. They have energy transition will depend on geography. In Switzerland, in Norway, they are going to move faster. That's the language some people have started speaking in Delhi. Unfortunately, we are not Norway. We are not Switzerland. We are not Canada. We are a developing economy.
If we adopt that defeatist attitude, then we won't meet our climate change goals.
No, Vishnu, don't go to other extreme. You don't have to swing between two extremes. All I'm trying to draw your attention to is that how to build a way forward, not defeat it. That's unfortunate a person like you talk like this. Don't do that. Don't go to that extreme. I'm not saying it's either extreme north or extreme south. What I'm saying is these are the challenges in front of us. Now, at the same time, intent is very good. We need to move in that direction. We need to move to the age of electricity. No debate on that. Question is how. Number one, states need to be involved in the planning. Number two, all stakeholders need to be planned. We need to build ecosystem first, infrastructure feed, the car manufacturers, the battery manufacturers, the kind of ecosystem will lead to charge and all that. We should take an electric vehicle from here and go to Lucknow. Come back and talk with me. You will have to stop so many places today, even if you carry your own batteries and all that.
So let me just go across to Mr. Sharma. I'll try and come back to you in a moment. Mr. Sharma, the fact of the matter is that electric vehicles are very much the future, but when it comes to batteries, the cost of batteries is still so significant that the price of EVs is not, it's just not affordable. Is this a technology hurdle? Is this a hurdle because still we don't have enough people buying, let us say, EVs? Or how do we overcome this?
Vishnu, I feel Mr. Taneja has this part of the issue has answered very well. There's one dimension that has not been raised is that LNG trucking and LNG buses. In fact, under my chairmanship, a report was submitted on India Energy Forum platform in 2019, and we made a presentation to Niti Aayog also, the roadmap for gas-based economy to how to realize the vision of the Prime Minister to make it gas-based economy, take gas share to 15%. There are multiple recommendations were there, and there we quoted that in China, there are 300,000 trucks and buses running on highways on LNG as a fuel. So that is something intermediate fuel that is very much doable.
Okay.
That has not been, but whatever I glanced through this report, it's a very comprehensive report. I need to compliment those who have put in efforts to put down this report. Now there is a report by an advisory panel. It will involve, the consultation process by the stakeholders, and then the roadmap
so there'll be a decision.
implementation.
There'll be a process of decisions. Mr. Bhatt, do you agree with the concerns that Mr. Taneja raises over here? I mean, it's common sense, a lot of what he says. But there are others who say that, look, if we don't pursue this aggressively, if we don't find the political will to actually make the changes, we can forever be talking about halfway steps. When do we actually start doing something substantive? We can't breathe in Delhi, let's face it.
Exactly. And I think, so couple of things we have to realize very clearly, that with internal combustion engine, you cannot achieve climate goal, that's one. You cannot achieve public health goal, that's two. And you can't achieve the goal of self-reliance or Atmanirbharta because 90% of the petroleum you are importing from outside, right? So that's one point. The second point is, what is the future? Internal combustion engine is going to be a dead technology in next 15, 20 years. So if you wait for the world to move, then we will be left behind. So the point over here is that we have to first understand that there are serious health implications and we should plan for it. So that's point number. Number two, even if you look at life cycle emission, India, 67% energy comes from fossil fuel. Yet a car in India compared to petrol or diesel is cleaner by almost 20%, and two-wheeler is cleaner by almost 50% in terms of life cycle emission. Now, what the Prime Minister has given a target that by 2030, 50% of our energy will come from non-fossil fuel sources. Now, if that is the case, we now have a pathway, and the pathway is you produce green electricity, which is all renewables, and India is doing it, and then you use that energy either through battery electric, which is there, or hydrogen fuel cell. So now we know with the zero emission vehicle, we have a pathway to clean our transport system, which addresses the climate goal, which addresses the public health goals, and it kind of addresses this whole issue of self-reliance, because as we speak, we are hearing stories about huge lithium deposit being found in Jammu Kashmir and Rajasthan and so on and so forth.
Mr. Malhotra, anything you'd like to, I'll come to you next, Mr. Taneja, half a second, but Mr. Malhotra, what is the way forward? We've been talking about this for years.
So the way forward is, in our approach, we have to take hybrid vehicles and flex fuel vehicles, which are a practical proposition. Even today, we don't have a policy to incentivize hybrid vehicles, where the emissions goes down by 50% and also fuel efficiency improves by 40%. Second, just putting all the budget on EV. What is our penetration today? 1% on cars, 5% on two-wheelers, 2% on buses, 55% on three-wheelers, but 90% are on lead acid, which is more harmful than petrol and diesel.
Sure.
So effectively, we have to have a multi-pronged strategy. It has to be technology agnostic. And we have to start it right away. We can't bank on one fuel. The transition path is there. And then this entire business of doing 2027 band, it doesn't come overnight. We have to have phase-wise manner of reduction. It can start even from 2024. Why are we waiting for 2027? But we say everything will switch off on 2027. It's not going to happen. So we need to be more pragmatic, practical, but very, very ambitious. And there should be carrots and sticks from the government side to drive this. That's acceptable.
Mr. Taneja, 2 minutes. Running out of time. Go ahead, sir, with your final thoughts.
Now, Vishnu, no disagreement. Health has to come first. Environment has to come first. But at the same time, we got to kind of look at it more realistically.
Yeah.
You see, all the narratives on climate, narratives on transition are made in the West. Developing countries absolutely no say in that. We need our own narratives. We need to move there. No doubt about it. I agree with Mr. Bhatt 101%. The question is, how do we get there? Have we built ecosystem, to ban diesel car tomorrow morning? Have we built that? Where is that? So we need to build that first. You see, we need to build the EVs infrastructure, ecosystem, we have to get the states on board and at the same time incentivize electric vehicles, incentivize, for instance, LNG trucks that Mr. Sharma was talking about. Let's not forget that we need natural gas as a kind of bridge for next 15, 20 years. 20 years from now, we will have infrastructure, the cost will come down and we will be in a much better position. So I'm saying transition with a human face, not a forced transition. Transition with a human face, build all this, make these things attractive for the ordinary consumers.
No, I think that's very important, that it cannot be just announced and then vehicles get pulled off the road. But sir, it does require immense political will. We've been talking about bringing down the cost of batteries for years. We've been talking about improving our health for years. But year after year, we fail to achieve our own targets. And now the Prime Minister has laid out a very strong target.
Vishnu, you have mentioned political will by now 7 times. I think what the report is talking about, what the kind of targets already announced by the Prime Minister, and actually India has already committed in Sharm el Sheikh before Glasgow. We are committed. We are committed to the global community. So there is no lack of political will. But political will, can you drive your car? With political will alone, can you drive a truck? I'm talking of the practical things.
No. What I'm saying is that there must be political will to start enforcing this in right earnest.
Well, that's being done. That's being done already. Absolutely. But what I'm saying is, build this thing, incentivize it, instead of saying that we're going to ban it from tonight 2 o'clock. Don't do that. Incentivize electric vehicles. Incentivize so that people go for that.
But you see, Mr. Taneja, let me disagree with you slightly. When we talk about it is being done, I think we need to have a reality check on what has been done and what has not been done. It's been mentioned on this discussion that we don't have a scrappage policy. There is still a huge battle on whether BS3 diesel vehicles or vehicles which are older than 10 years old should or should not be on the roads. We've been unable to deal with that. We've been unable to get those cars off the roads. Despite the police prosecution is abysmally low. I'm talking about Delhi. The situation is worse in many other cities of this country.
Absolutely.
So what I'm trying to tell you, sir, is that we may make these laudatory goals, but the fact of the matter is, unless there is political will, and I'm not talking necessarily about the center, state governments, any government, then this will never be done, because this is not going to be popular. By no means.
But I agree with you all this. I'm saying that's what I'm saying. Make things kind of, attractive for the consumers. People of India, more than the government and you and me, they want clean air. They want it. They want electric vehicles because also good economics. So I'm saying work on that at the same time. But there is
and the priority, sir, not just our energy goals. I would suggest the priority is our health first. There are statistics associated now with air pollution and deaths and mortality. The numbers are absolutely crazy.
Who would disagree with you?
Anyway, so I take your point that it has to be, with a humane face. And, there are so many
transition with a
technology
human
solutions.
face and with Indian characteristics.
I do believe that the entire argument that this needs to be technology agnostic is also so important. It's not EVs or no versus no EVs. It has to be a hybrid solution based on what we can realistically do. But will we be having this conversation in 2027? Mr. Taneja, you and me and our wonderful panelists over here where very little has been done? I fear that just might be the case. And I think that's the fear that I wanted to reflect on.
Not really. I think you'll see tremendous progress. It's all driven by technology now.
All right. Okay, well, thank you so much. It's been a fantastic conversation and we must revisit this and look at more practical solutions in the road ahead.